And that's why I wanted to talk to you about it. You play a dark character very well, if you don't mind me saying so. I mean,
thank you.
It's believable. I've known some dark people, and your portrayal is believable, very believable. And so that makes me wonder what price you pay for that. It's kind of a cliche, you know, you play a dark role and it invades you, but it isn't obvious to me how you can play a dark role without it invading you. And then, or at least you have to allow something dark in yourself to come out and respond to that. And you're very different on the screen playing Rustin Cole than you are in a romantic comedy role, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's somewhat surprising to see that transition, which I guess is why other people might be surprised by that too, which is why you actually had a bit of a hiatus when you stopped taking rom-com roles. But I'm curious, like, what were the consequences for you of playing that character in particular, but dark characters in general?
The dark characters, the baddie, usually has so much more identity than the white knight, than the hero in stories that I read in scripts and things. The dark characters and are also they're always usually outsiders, and the consequence is that if I'm really going to portray one of those well, that part of myself, I'm putting myself on an island, and that excites me. I want to feel like the underdog. I want to feel like I don't have to pander to manners or graces. I'm living by different rules. And not even to prove a point, but just say in a Rustin Cole's position, someone who just, I didn't make big acting choices with Rustin Cole. I just did what I could to understand the text so well that I could just say it and not have to solicit it. Or again, Rustin Cole was a guy who preferred his own company to anyone else's, and that solitude. That was a vacation for me. Also, as a person who is a believer, to have to be inhabit a character who is not a believer at all, and here's why. I'll tell you, I've always thought this was odd. At the time that I chose and wanted to go inhabit Rustin Cole was the time that my faith was strongest. And if my faith would have been as strong, I might have been a little more fearful of going so deep into this man's mind, spirit, and ethos. And
so you had some protection.
But I trust.
He's very nihilistic, the character Cole. He reminds me, there's a philosopher in South Africa who's an anti-natalist. Unfortunately, his name escapes me for a moment. I had a debate with him a couple of years ago, but his basic premise is that conscious suffering is so morally untenable as a phenomenon that all life should cease. That if we were making the proper moral choices, we'd stop reproducing. But not only that we'd also do what we could. Well, we can leave it at that we'd stop reproducing, because if you sum up a life, it's bitter, and the bitterness overwhelms the sweet. And so it's cruelty to perpetuate.
Yes, I think that is beautiful and in many ways true. And I think it's also hilarious.
What strikes you as comical about that? You laughed about it. And
because that's where, of course, we're on the way to dying. You talk about it all the time. It's tough. It's cruel. It's hard. We're out here. This thing is okay. I'm in. So that's inevitable.
That's the strange thing, and I felt too. I mean, I can certainly understand the argument.
But I hear it, and it adds up. But if that's inevitable, which I think we can all say that's inevitable. It's time. We're on the way to dying. It's over. We'll never know if this is the end or not. So or if there's anything after it, and it's hardships and overcome. Okay, since that's inevitable, and we got to do this thing anyway, if we're choosing to stay in life another day, so what's a better way to go about it? saying it's all for nothing, or realizing right there when you go, it's all for nothing. No, that's why fucking it's all for everything.
Yeah, well,
They're in the same
it also
place.
seems to me that if your objection to life is it's suffering, adopting an attitude that will make that suffering worse is probably not a reasonable solution. And that's where that grounds out for me.
There's no construction in there. What I mean, there's nothing affirmative or life-giving about that. It's not making the best of the situation if the situation's doomsday. So, I'm not for Hallmark cards and delusional optimism, but I mean, in this way, I would say optimism is survival. It's like, well, okay, if it's all for
I think optimism is courage. If it's not naive,